Hello, this is Kristen Jordan Koenig with the Kansas Data Access and Support Center, and today we're going to be talking about the SurCheck application that we're using to QC the 2018 Kansas NG911 photography. So after you signed up to be a user, we will send you the link, which is here, so you can certainly always jump in and check that out if you want to. We're also going to be issuing all of our QC volunteers a username and password, so wait to hear from us to see what that is. After you've received that, this is the steps that you'll be doing to start QCing the NG911 2018 imagery. So to get started, we're going to hit the login form button and enter in our username and password. Hit submit. Enter doesn't work. You have to click on submit. It should think for a second, and you don't necessarily have to keep the password that we send you initially. You can always change that if you'd like to, and that's completely fine. So the work zone will populate. You will be assigned a work zone, and this will tell you the status of your QC operation. So you don't have to finish it all in one sitting. You can come to it as you have time, come back, and that's perfectly fine. So to get going, we're going to hit the button Start Inspection. It's then going to zoom to the work zone that you've been assigned to. So right now I'm in work zone 14, and that's the basics of how it gets going. If you jump here and the map does not automatically show you the imagery in the background, you can toggle the base map that's available with the buttons down here in the corner. So right now it's set to base map. You can also turn on the fourth band, the CIR, if you want to check that out. That's not really included in the QC process. So if you have edits to it, don't flag them. Work on emailing us instead. So we want to make sure that the RGB is the one that's selected. The basic navigation of the SurCheck website is a lot like your average web map. So up here you've got your navigation tools. You've got your pan, you can zoom. I think it takes a little bit. It didn't like my pan. There we go. So the zooming is click, drag a box. The zooming out is also click and drag. This will be zoomed to the previous. You can then zoom back and forth. Hopefully I'm not giving anyone motion sickness, but we're trying to get through this pretty quickly. Then some of the other navigation buttons that are available or tools. There's a swipe tool available if you want to check it out. This is going to swipe the imagery. I believe this is the Esri imagery. So if there's a feature that you need to check out and you want to see, okay, what was there previously? What does this imagery show? You can use the swipe tool as a resource. So this button, display layers, will toggle the transparency of various layers. So for example, I think that these thin blue lines for each tile are a little bit thin. I can't see them very well, so we can turn up the transparency on those so they're less transparent so they show up more. There are also custom layers listed, and these are controlled through the settings box, which is up here. You can also change the swipe layer if you want to, and so if you want to use, for example, the previous version of our NG911 imagery, we at DAS can send you the URL to use instead of the imagery from Esri instead. So I haven't messed around too much with adding custom layers if you want to add those. So if that's a concern of yours, shoot me an email and we'll get it figured out. Okay, to collapse the layers, you just hit the button again. This zoom to project overview button should jump to the state of Kansas. Whatever. All right, zoom to progress view will show you just the region that we're working in now. Right now, it's just the western portion of Kansas. I don't know what's going to happen when we add the central and then the eastern regions. I'm not sure what this button is going to do, but just basically zooms you out a while. So this will jump you to your current work zone. So again, I'm working in zone 14, so I'm once again moved to zone 14. So to actually start the inspection, we're going to go over here and you can see this very thin gray light bulb icon. So this is going to start and stop what they call their progressive inspection. So when you turn it on, it's going to zoom you to the upper left-hand corner of the map to then sequentially move through tiles. This is one way that you can do your QA/QC. It's probably one of the most straightforward ways. So in here, you jump to the tile, take a look at things. If you want to, have to note, this also pulls up a zoom to current tile button. So if you need to zoom around a little bit, if you zoom into something, you can always hit the zoom to current tile and it'll swoop you back to where you were working. So to actually complete the QA/QC of the imagery, it's great to get an overview of the tile you're working in, but we are particularly interested in what roads look like, road intersections, and this is a great example because we have a seam line where two different flights of imagery were put together and stitched together. That's designated by this yellow line. So to be able to check it out, you can zoom in using the zoom in button, or let's see if it works. You can just double click on the map and it will bring up a zoom box. So you can zoom in more, you can jump out, and then you can also move the box. So you can work through the imagery that way. One disadvantage of this in particular is that the yellow line for the seam line doesn't show up, and neither do the grid lines. So when I was practicing, I actually went like way too far and didn't stay inside my tile. To make it disappear, double click outside the box and it will go away. So again, you can also zoom in using normal patterns. Not sure what happened there, so we'll just hit back. So click and drag a box, perfectly acceptable. And then eventually, when you've concluded that that tile looks completely fine, you hit the green arrow to accept the tile and continue to the next one. This tile is going to be pretty straightforward and may or may not actually warrant being QA/QC'd. There's no seam lines, there's no roads. It's pretty straightforward. So unless you see something glaringly obviously wrong with the tile, you can pretty much move on forward or skip it in general. One thing to note is that you can see the tile behind us that we just QC'd is now marked in a light blue color. That is the symbology to say, we looked at that tile, it's done, moving forward, which is a great way, especially as you've progressed through a lot of the work zone, to be able to see what portion you've checked, what portion is still pending, things of that nature. So let's pretend that these aren't actually some sort of agricultural area, that they are actually an error that we want to flag. To flag an error, we're going to click on the pencil for a collect edit call. It's going to bring up a variety of problems that we can flag. Let's pretend that we've got clouds in this area, so we'll pick clouds or cloud shadows and press down to start and let go to finish. This is the box. We can also freehand a polygon. I tried the circle earlier and it still draws a box to flag it. So after you click and drag or complete your polygon, this little pop-up will show up indicating the call type. So if you clicked on the wrong kind or you want to change the category, you can do that. We'll keep it as clouds or cloud shadow. And you can enter a comment. We're just going to put in test. If you would like to keep this comment, you can hit the star with the plus. So then it will save your comment in case you have multiple times you need to add this phrase. And then when you click on saved comment, you can click on test. So we're going to click save and our edit disappeared. Yay. it is not gone forever. How to turn it back on? We are going to go down to the edit call table and check the box for active work zone only. Not sure why it's set up this way, that's just how it works. So after you check that box, you'll be able to see edits that you have for this one and in the future. So you can double click on this, it'll zoom to the edit, it'll record the attributes about it, and then also some other things that the edits that we make will be reviewed first at Dask and then also by Surdex to make sure that it's actually an error and that it's something that warrants being fixed. This is just part of the complete QA/QC process, so just know that whatever you do flag will be reviewed in the future. So like don't put cuss words in the description or something like that probably. Okay, I think that is about it. And oh, if you make an edit that you don't want to keep, you can click invalidate call. It'll ask you if you're sure. Yes, I'm sure. And it's still there. So to clear that out again, if you toggle active work zone only off and then on again, then your invalidated call should actually disappear at that point in time. So once again, now that we're done with this tile, we can move forward and accept that tile, move to the next one. So those are the basics of how to go through the editing process. And like I said previously, we don't need to check every single tile of every single work zone. We're really focusing on a few specific topics: roads and road intersections. Looking especially at paved roads, they have a higher priority than gravel roads, and also in communities. In Western Kansas, we're not going to have quite as many communities as we are in Central and Eastern Kansas. But we do want to take a pretty good look at communities and see how things are looking inside, roads, houses, cars, things like that. There will be a very good guide in the back of the PDF that you will get as to what constitutes an error to flag, but what also does not. Plow lines do not constitute as errors. There's a whole lot of them. Some of them are kind of amusing actually. So before you start doing the QA/QC, take a really good look at those and just kind of review what constitutes an error, what's weird. Pavement changes are normal. Those do not constitute an error, just so we can be sure to flag what are actually anomalies versus what just looks kind of funny. I think this kind of looks like a face and that's kind of funny, but it's not an error, it's just how the field goes. In some work zones, you might only need to flag 25% of the tiles. In some work zones, especially in Central and Eastern, we're going to need to flag 75% of the tiles, just based on where seam lines are, where paved roads are, where communities are, etc. So that's our very brief overview of SurCheck, and if you have any questions, certainly contact Dask and we are happy to help you out. And I think that's going to do it for today's presentation. Thanks for joining.